Hi. Wow, that took a lot more effort to get what I wanted to be set up. Oh, I look really past. Okay, let's bring up the warmth. Let's do some things so I don't look quite so pasty, but it is winter in New England and it's just gray, which kind of ties into the theme of what I want to talk about tonight, among other things. Hey, everybody. I am your friendly neighborhood Prax. Welcome in. Hope you are having a good day. Hope your week is mostly over. Oh, you see? You see him? You see him, Cullen? Isn't he pretty? Isn't he? Isn't he doing some great things? Vinegar is, So yeah, I kind of want to talk about a bunch of different things. Hi, I'm your friendly neighborhood Prax. I use she, her pronouns. We're going to be chatting tonight about a bunch of different stuff. The new game that I'm going to be running, starting in February, and some thoughts I've been having about melodrama. Specifically, how melodrama is translated across cultures, and what that means, and how it works, and why some cultures' melodrama works, I think, a little bit better than others. Or more accurately, why I think melodrama is respected in some countries more than others. And how that translates into, appreciation across the board for the medium, or how that is expressed in a variety of mediums. But hi, how you doing? How's life going for you out there on this Saturday night? I know I sound horrible, but that's because it's cold and dry and nasty, and it's like, look, I live in New England, and we have this phrase here. It's called too cold to snow. And people are like, what do you mean? Well, what do you mean? Because if it gets really cold in like the Antarctic, it snows all the time. I'm like, yes, but that's not how it works in New England. And what happens in New England is, if it gets that cold, it becomes that dry. And so it doesn't actually snow. So there's no humidity. It's just 8 degrees with a wind chill of -5 Fahrenheit. And for those of you who are... I had somebody come at me the other day saying, oh, you use those freedom units, why don't you use some like actually scientific true measurements and tell me what you mean in Celsius? I'm like, I turned to him and I go, y'all don't want to fuck with me on this, do you? He goes, give it to me in Celsius like everybody else in the world, and like the true measurement. I'm like, can you tell me in Kelvin? Give it to me in Kelvin. What's your current temperature, oh glorious scientific nerd, in Kelvin? Because that's the true measurement of temperature, according to the scientific community. He was very not pleased that I called him on his bullshit. To which I just have to say, don't start something you can't finish. Right? Like, not my fault. Definitely not my fault you weren't paying attention or didn't know enough to not F around and find out. But hey. So, we are chatting about stuff. But first I should tell you that there is a merch store, and I re-released the Vampires for Nixon stuff through the end of the month. And I just want to put a big sign on it and say, it wasn't supposed to be this topical, but it was. And I have a Ko-Fi if you'd like to support that. It goes back into the stream, it helps me run things, it helps me keep all of this running and doing all these fun things and doing all these streams. But we're chatting about melodrama. and how it projects, blah, 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 and how it presents across cultures and what individual cultures think about melodrama and how and even across time. I can only do time in a very limited sense because I don't know as much about how melodrama is understood across time for centuries. No, I can kind of do a little bit of it. I was going to say in limited geographic area, but I can acknowledge at least some areas, so it'll be wider geographic area, but I'm not making any hard and fast rules at the moment. Yes, no hard and fast rules at the moment. Instead, I'm going to talk about the fact that I watch a lot of K-dramas and C-dramas. I do. I watch a lot of Asian television. Specifically Korean dramas and Chinese dramas. Both mainland China and Taiwan. And a little bit of Thai. I mean, I didn't think... I give you credit for that line, Krellin. I give you credit for that reference. You get 3 extra points. Because that is... I love that reference. It is my mother's favorite movie and one of the most important films, I think, in filmography. And if you don't know what that reference is... Look, Krellin, I'm Sicilian. We're never keeping score. We're just having an entire notebook going back generations about who gave what to whom at the various weddings and how much they paid to her busta at their wedding, and maybe we should adjust what we give to them because, you know... It's not about keeping score. At least not in that sense. Southern Italian, same thing. Well, you know, there's a little bit of difference, but yes, you are correct. Hey, Simon, welcome in. So yes, I watch a lot of international dramas. I also watch a lot of Italian TV. Italian TV is a little bit different. Italians are weird. They have melodrama murder mysteries, and not like you would think, like the British melodramatic murder mysteries, you know, Midsummer Murders or Hercule Poirot. It's not like that. It's film noir melodrama in an Emilio Zenga suit, walking down the Piazza Navona. You know, it's interesting. And then you have a whole subgenre. Because, like, melodrama in Italy, or at least the ones that I've seen, right? Like, I can't claim to have seen everything that Italian TV has ever produced, and I'm focusing specifically on things that would fall under the definition of melodrama. And I guess we should talk about what I'm defining melodrama is, right? Because that's going to be important. So, let's use the dictionary.com definition of melodrama, right? Let's go with that just so that we are all in the same kind of vein, right? So the first definition okay, come on, open. All right. Melodrama. Let's make this bigger. A dramatic form that does not observe the laws of cause and effect and that exaggerates emotion and emphasizes plot or action at the expense of characterization, which I feel is not quite right, but I'm willing to accept it. Melodramatic behavior or events. Okay, we'll have to see what they define as melodramatic. In the 17th, 18th, and early 19th centuries, a romantic dramatic composition with music interspersed. Oh, look! This, I think, is the more accurate definition, right? Like, and this is what I think... Is there a different for British? Ooh, we should look at what the British definition is. Why am I not in dark mode? Okay, well, I am. Alright. So, a play, film, etc. characterized by extravagant action and emotion. Okay. Formerly a romantic drama characterized by sensational incident, music, and song. Okay, so this is what I was thinking. Over-dramatic emotion or behavior. Fair. Valid. A poem or part of a play or opera spoken to a musical accompaniment. Alright. That's the part that's most interesting. Cultural. A play or film in which the plot is often sensational and the characters may display exaggerated emotion. Okay, so this is what we're going to use, right? This is the definition we're going to use because this is what I think of when we talk about melodrama. And it's I think the definition that's going to be most broadly understood by the most people and going to be, at the end of the day, most easily interpreted, right? Like, if we say, oh, and it just closed. Of course it did. Why did it have to close? If we say the definition is a play or a film in which the plot is often sensational and the characters may display exaggerated emotion, then we get into the question of what is considered exaggerated, what is considered all of these things, right? Like, those are all going to vary culture to culture, language to language, moment to moment throughout history and time and geography. Because those are different things and they need to be accounted for. But this whole thing came up because I am currently watching, savoring, in the best way, the Chinese drama called Blossom. It aired at the end of 2024, and I'm one of those people, if I can, I don't usually watch them as they're airing. I'll watch them after everything's done, and I'll just binge the whole thing. Or I'll do what I'm doing now, and I'll savor it, where I'll watch maybe 3 episodes at a time, and work my way through, like, the 34 to 50 episodes that are in this, C-drama. But I'm going to put the My Drama List link in the chat. And pull it up on here. Loop. After... Wow, I can't see... So this is a 34 episode produced in mainland China, and it aired in China, or on Tencent, right? So Tencent is one of the 3 big technically 4 streaming platforms in China. They are Tencent, iQIYI, Youku, and Mango Television. And Mango kind of is a little weird because they're kind of like a secondary they're a little bit of a secondary. It's fine. But Tencent is one of the big top 3. Like, it's Tencent and iQIYI are considered like the big 2, and then there's Youku, and then there's Mango. but they are the big platforms that stream these dramas. And the way Chinese drama is done is the whole series is filmed, edited, special effects are applied, all of that. And then it is sent to the censors, and the censors then will grant an airing license or say that, hey, you need to go back and cut XYZ because of XYZ reasons that are only known to the censors in China. Why do I feel a giant knot in my hair? Oh God, I have a giant knot in my hair. Okay. I do not claim to know what all of the censors want. However, I do know that there's a bunch of stuff that is not going to fly with the censors just based on the general understanding of what the censors talk about. Tencent is one of the biggest. They also are a major conglomerate and have massive holdings in video games and animation studios. And if you are in the United States, you may have heard rumblings about people trying to, in Congress, ban Tencent. Well, nope, that one. Tencent is also owns a bunch of computer chip companies that serve various applications for the Chinese government. But their business model when it comes to dramas is, usually pretty good. The stuff that the stuff that Tencent produces is usually, moderately well, that's what I'm looking for. Let's just do this, because apparently I can't do other things today. No, that doesn't work. So, Tencent usually gives a pretty decent budget to a lot of things. They can draw in pretty big name actors for a large number of their projects. That's not to say that all of their projects are the highest of high quality, but they're usually, at least decent, right? Like, they're watchable. If they're not good, they're at least watchable. What we're talking about tonight is Blossom. And Blossom is more than just watchable. Blossom is actually really good. It's considered really popular. It currently has like an 8.9 out of 10 rating on my drama list, with a number of watchers of 16,000. So, relatively popular. And my drama list is, kind of geared towards outside of Asia or outside of China, people who are trying to find these Chinese dramas or Korean dramas or any other drama like that outside of their home country. I heard from a couple people that are on China's internet that it's Douban rating, which is kind of like China's version of IMDb and Drama List combined. Its Douban rating is also pretty high, close to a 9, so good all around. And it falls into the genre of what is called period idol dramas, right? So these are dramas that are set in some period of Chinese history, pre-1900s usually, or that's not true. No, this is true if I'm going to make this distinction. Period idol dramas are not the same thing as necessarily historical period dramas. Those are two different things. They can overlap, but not all the time, and this is not one of those cases. A period idol drama is a drama that is mostly probably romance-based, maybe has some more complicated plot, usually involving politics, is never kind of firmly set in any one particular um, time during a given empire dynasty. It's hard to pin down exactly when it is this or that. Sometimes it's given into an entirely fictional time period, but they use the trappings of either the Tang Dynasty or the Ming Dynasty or the uh, you know Qin Dynasty. So they it's not specific. It's not supposed to be history, right? It's supposed to be about the romantic pairing between the main couple and then possibly any additional pairing that may exist between any side couples. It's a romance set in the period history versus historical period dramas, which are about historical periods that are about not so much the history as they may have a romance, but it's over here, but they're focusing on certain historical figures, and usually it's going to end in tragedy. Please hold for a moment while I go blow my nose and figure out why the dog is barking. So 30 seconds, everybody. Okay, sorry about that. The deer decided to taunt the dog. But back, yay, good things happening. Period idol dramas versus actual period dramas. Oh, so like actual period dramas are usually going to focus on like a historical figure, usually end in tragedy, possibly have a slight happy ending, but it's always going to be slightly framed less so, and are usually vehicles for slightly higher end actors, maybe even more mature actors, versus idol period dramas, which are usually romance based. Almost all of them are. That's not true. There are the romance based ones, and then there are the others, and we'll talk about the others in a minute. They're usually, but an idol period drama, historical, usually based on the romance, and are vehicles for a variety of young, pretty people to show off with, and their ability to act is important, but not also vital. Right? Because in China there's a strong tradition, because of the fact that there are so many different dialects, of dubbing the actors, because somebody might be hired to play a role on screen because of their acting ability and or because they're a pretty face, but they may not have perfect Mandarin, instead might speak with a local dialect. And because these are all aired throughout China, their Mandarin is supposed to be really good. And because of that, there's a strong tradition. Almost 99% of the Chinese dramas that we see are dubbed. Some of them are using real voice. More and more of them are using real voice or recorded on set kind of stuff. But a large percentage of them are dubbed in ADR. And because of that, when you have idol period dramas, which is kind of like their level of, then you've got idol wuxia and jinja, right? Like there's idol period and then there's jinja and wuxia. Jinja are fantasy. It's Chinese fantasy. They can't call it that because the censors won't like it, but it's Chinese fantasy. And it deals with, you know, fairies and Chinese gods and demons and tragic romances across different clan lines, and then there's wire work and occasional, you know, falling in love with your enemy, and it spans, like, we're going to talk about one of the most popular and longest lasting and, like, overarching important Chinese dramas when it comes to Jinja. It's 1,000 Miles of Peach Blossom. 1,000 Miles of Peach Blossoms. Also known 10 Miles of Eternal Love is the series. Wait. What? No, it's 1,000 Miles of Peach. Why is 10 Miles of Peach Blossoms? Drama list, come here. Why are you failing me? Okay. So this is going to show you exactly how stylized we're talking here, everybody, okay? This is the poster for 10 Miles of Peach Blossoms, also known as Eternal Love, also known as the epic of epics when it comes to Chinese fantasy dramas, right? Like, spanning 3 lifetimes, falling in love, giving up your immortality, falling in love with, you know, finding each other when you were reincarnated as a human, and then you've lost your memories, and you've lost your child, but then you've to find your child, and it's this whole thing. 10 Miles of Peach Blossoms, also known as Eternal Love, ever ends. Look at this. Look at this. Eternal Love of Dream, Love and Destiny, 3 Lives, 3 Worlds, White Twilight Tears, Once Upon a Time, 10 Miles of Peach Blossoms After Story, which is actually, I think, a movie. And then 3 Lives, 3 Worlds, and The Pillow Book. And you're like, what? It goes on. Look, y'all, this isn't even all of it. It's 10 Miles of Peach Blossoms. Okay, that's 10 Miles of Peach Blossom After Story. Where's the... like, this is from 2018. It is 24 episodes. This is Eternal Love of Dream. That's the film that came out in 2020. That one's just bad. Eternal Love is the original, okay? It is 58 episodes, y'all. 58! Each episode is 45 minutes. It is 58 episodes. Somebody pick out a calculator and tell me exactly. Right? Like, that is 58 times by 45 is 2,610 minutes divided by 60. It is 43 and a half hours long to watch this couple fall in love throughout 3 lifetimes. It is the best kind of melodrama, and I almost wish Trooper was here, because Trooper, bless him, I love Trooper. Trooper loves melodrama, always a good thing, but Trooper also loves soap operas, and it's like, I can't call Chinese period or Chinese idol dramas either Jinja or historical period, or even wuxia soap operas, because I don't think it meets. There's 3 movies that come after it, Krellin. There's even more lifetimes. Like, there's a whole... And Once Upon a Time, also, look at this. Look at how not historically accurate this is. This is not supposed to be insert Kylo Ren more meme. Exactly. Look, we get more. There's even more of this. Where is it? Love and Destiny. Love and Destiny is just... They do her so dirty in that series. Like, she does... That skull cap. You see how bad that skull cap looks in this picture? Right? It doesn't look any better on in that series. They spend so much money on CGI for, like, the fight scenes, and they can't give this woman a halfway decent blend line with that skull cap. And you're like, she is a gorgeous woman. Like, where is she? Oh, Love and Destiny. I want the details. Who is it? Oh, God, what's her name? What's the character's name? Is that who that is? Is that who that is? No, that's not who that is. Oh God, I forgot the character's name, so I can't show you, like, how gorgeous this woman is without that stupid skull cap. Look at her face! Look at those cheekbones! This woman is gorgeous! And they give her the worst kind of Star Trek, Kelvin timeline Romulan look. God. She's also a badass in this series. But going back to the whole reason we started this. So Blossom is... Okay, I'll read you the blurb here, and then we'll dissect it because there's a whole bunch of other things that are going on, and sometimes the blurbs are not really helpful. So, after losing her mother, Du Zhao became disillusioned with love and family, retreating to a remote village to study and protect her estate. One stormy night, she helped Song Mo, disguised as a merchant, protect the orphaned descendant of Duke Ding Guo. This fateful encounter led to their paths entwining as they each faced personal struggles. Song Mo with his family's downfall, and Du Zhao with the malicious rumors of an arranged marriage. Given a second chance, they slowly grow close, overcoming distrust and falling in love. Together they navigate political turmoil and uncover secrets and support of each other's throughout life's challenges. I would like to point out that this is a case of an orbit. Remember how we talked about, like, we've talked about how, as much as I love orbit books, and what they put on the blurb on the back of orbit books does technically occur maybe in the book in which it is blurbed, but never in the way it's written. And this is that case, right? Because the more important thing is all of this whole description here, right? Like, this whole description right here, that takes place after the time travel. Right, like, this whole thing takes place after the time travel. If you read this, would you think time travel from that description? In any way, shape, or form? Just putting that out there. So if I was going to explain Blossom, I would start with the fact that Du Zhao and Song Mo meet at the worst days of their individual lives. Her finding out that her husband is cheating on her with her younger sister and that they've both been attempting to poison her and kill her. And therefore is fleeing the marriage to go home and arrange a divorce. And she can't arrange the divorce inside Beijing because, this is set during the Ming Dynasty, and she should be able just to go to the Office of State Affairs and petition for divorce because of these grounds. And because she's of high enough status to do so. But she can't do that because the city is currently undergoing a violent revolution as the younger prince is attempting to overthrow the emperor, being supported, the younger prince did overthrow the emperor, and he was supported by Song Mo, who was a general and wanted to get revenge on what he believed was the wrongful persecution of his uncle, the Duke of Ding. And the prince then reneged on the deal, so Song Mo is sitting outside the city with an army, and the prince can't do anything because Song Mo's got the better army. So he's waiting for them to give him what he wants, while threatening the city of Beijing. Du Zhao can't get the divorce inside the city because all of the public services have shut down because, Song Mo is effectively besieging it. So she has to leave the city and go to her hometown to petition for this divorce. And on the way, meets Song Mo and his army. And it is a meeting of respect for two individuals who are both characters who are being portrayed as mature individuals, right? Like, they may physically look in their 20s, and they may have even been around their mid-20s as timeline in their characters, right? Because they've been married. I think Du Zhou in the beginning says that she's been married to her husband for 7 years, and they got married when she was like 19. So yeah, about, 25, 27, right? That's where they are. But they're mature individuals who recognize each other's intelligence. And Song Mo is like, well, just because we're besieging the city to get what I want from the government doesn't mean we can't be nice to the population. So we're going to be nice to the people and provide, tea and conversation and treat the, this high noble lady with respect. And, oh wait, Du Zhao's husband is aligned with the evil prince and then comes to besiege the Buddhist temple that they have taken refuge in, sacks it, and kills Du Zhao and Song Mo, and then Du Zhao wakes up and she is 8 years old again. That is episode 1 of this series. This is a series where the level of melodrama is at, we met our fated person, and then and then he tried to keep me alive as he's being arranged to be taken as the bad guy in a revolution and shot through the chest with an arrow, and time rewinds and things happen, right? Like, that's the level of melodrama we're at. And here's the thing. Blossom is not considered, even in China, or even on Chinese internet, to be high art, right? Like, it's not considered the highest of art. But this level of melodrama is considered important storytelling, important visualization, respected if it's done well. And in this case, it's done very well. Who is the director? Oh. So the director of this series is Zheng Xingche. And you have to love a man who will take his press photo in a 3-piece suit and wear those glasses, right? Like, this is you put some effort in. You put some effort in to get a well-tailored 3-piece blue suit and went just a little avant-garde with the glasses. Not too much. A little avant-garde, just enough so that you can say that you really, are an artist. But he is most well known for producing very short dramas. And by very short, I mean, like, they had this general who stole the Book of Heaven, right? Like, look at this cover. Look at this cover art and appreciate how cheesy this cover art is, right? Like, this is some art. But the whole thing is 1 hour and 22 minutes. Or The Killer is Romantic, right? It's a 12-minute drama, right? Like it's broken up into multiple little mini sections, but it's in 12 minutes. So he is very well known for these very short dramas that are, like 15-minute filler kind of episode kind of stuff. It's like, it's a mini serial that they're like, so it's growing in popular. It's what does Avenue X call them? Avenue X calls them toilet bowl series. And not for, like, being a negative for, like, the film, the actors or the director or anything is trash or shitter. No, it's because it's so popular. Like, these are released in, like, TikTok reel levels of sections. So, like, 1 minute, 2 minute, whatever clips. And that people watch them on the toilet. Exactly. You can watch it on the can. And because of that, he is so well known for these very short dramas, but because of that, he's got very distinctive timing when it comes, because again, if you're filming these short dramas, you have to be able to film as much, be very conservative with your time with your actors, but also be very conservative on what shots you need. Have your shot tell you exactly what you need in a visual medium in the shortest possible amount of time. And so Blossom is actually currently his first full-length series, right? Like really invested. So one of the things, by the way, I'm not going to spoil the rest of the series beyond what I gave you for timeline and the fact that then Du Zhao remembers the previous timeline, and so she begins to manipulate things, and eventually they will meet each other and fall back in love, and it's a very mature story. And mature, not mature in the sense like, oh, there's sex and violence and blah, blah, blah. No, I mean mature in the fact that the characters act in a mature way. Du Zhao remembers having been married for 10 years, comes back, and does what she can to try and fix things. And then she realizes she can't really fix a lot of the big things, but she can fix some of the small things first. And then slowly sees it start to change. But she also goes, well, if my family's going to be cursed to have to deal with this rebellion in the next few years, we should be as set as we can financially. So this girl goes into business hard, right? Like, there's particularly in the Ming Dynasty, the women of the like the wife of the head of the family, or the oldest daughter-in-law, would run the household finances, right? Like, it was their responsibility to run the finances. And people might have, like, if you were of the upper classes and you had a lot of wealth, you might have, like, a man who is a scholar might take that, a small amount of that and have a personal investment, but the majority of his money would go to his wife, and she would run the whole house's finances. And so it becomes a point of pride that Du Zhao in this series ends up with a dowry that is literally almost bigger than the national, like, it like, when they start talking about it, they're like, oh, well, you know, like, this high-end family, this duke family, their entire income is 10,000 taels of silver. And a tael is like, I think it comes out to that, like, 10 ounces. It's a little 10-ounce bar. So their entire family income from all of their investment properties and everything that they have for the year is 10,000. And she's like, yeah, my dowry is 80,000 taels of silver plus, 40,000 taels of gold. And you're just like, what? This woman has an independent wealth of a small nation. Good for her. Manipulate that stock market. But because of that, it very much highlights that she is an intelligent individual. She is mature. She invests in these businesses and she's running these businesses and she has a thought process in all of this. And then you juxtapose that with Song Mo, and he grew up in the military, is a military general, has the dedication of his troops, is a very skilled fighter, but also is a very skilled strategist when it comes to combat, large-scale combat, small-scale combat. Also, he is really good at apparently interrogating people and knowing if somebody's lying to him based on being able to read heart palpitations, various, basically micro expressions kind of stuff. It's not perfect, and he knows it's not perfect, but he tries. It's pretty good. But these are both characters who have their own. They're not perfect. They're not superheroes by any means, but they are characters who have their own skill set. They meet, and at first they bump heads because they're both intelligent, powerful, and trying to deal with an issue. And Song Mo is actually more pissed at Du Zhao when she pretends to be stupid, because he's like, no, I know that you're intelligent, just don't treat me like an idiot. And he goes, but when they finally, they work through things, they finally get to the point where they do actually, going to put the spoiler tag up now, spoilers, they get married. But unlike most Chinese dramas, the wedding isn't the end of the series. This is a Chinese drama where they finally get married at about... Their wedding episode is it's like the total of 34 episodes, and I believe the wedding episode for them is like episode 20, right? There's more than a third of the series left to go. Or no, it's actually earlier than that. It's like 16. So it's like half of the series is after they get married. So half of this series is about them dealing as adults with outside political issues, internal family struggles, and manipulations from their parents and step-parents, and some dark shit that's perfectly fun in the melodramatic way. But together as a married couple. And working through those issues as a married couple who both respect each other's intelligence, who sit there and have a conversation of, this is why we should do this. No way, I think we should do it this way. Explain to me why you think this. Okay, if you can do that, then I'll do this part. We'll make this work. Go. And it's beautiful to watch. Intelligent characters making intelligent choices, or making in-character choices, and when they make unintelligent choices, you understand why they are making the emotional choice instead of the rational choice, right? Like, here's my thing. You can have a character you can have an intelligent character who is otherwise brilliant, absolutely brainy, intelligent, make a mistake and make the irrational emotional choice if you earn it, right? Like, you need to have an explanation of, yes, this character has an emotion tied to this person or this thing or whatever, right? Like, you have to establish that. You have to establish that, in this case, Sungmo is very much a touch my wife and die kind of guy, right? There's an entire scene early in the series when he's working in the military and he's like straight up torturing a pirate. And you're like, okay, so now we know that he has not a lot of concern when it comes to, you know, this is not a character who shies away from violence by any means. This is a character who knows his skill set and knows that he has a sharp, pointy object with which it is important to stab the other person with a sharp, pointy object. Like, this is not in any way, shape, or form a subtle kind of character. So, when you have that character, that same character who's like, yes, I will torture a man for information about a pirate stronghold that has been attacking our country's trading vessels, and then you go, oh, now he's married to a woman that he actually respects and who respects him and cares about him. Yeah, when he decides to be like, you touched my wife, motherfucker, I'm going to stab you, and there's nothing you can do about it, and it will be, I do not care how violent it's going to get. It's like, you touched my wife and you understand exactly where this is coming from. Many would call it a first date. I don't know that it would be first date worthy. It wasn't their first date. So, hold on a second. I need to blow my nose again. So, when you have this level of melodrama, right? Like, you have this slow build, this slow revelation, and you started episode 1 with the two main characters dying in a violent revolt of the younger prince overthrowing the established government and using Songmo to do it, and then turning around and murdering him because he understands, you know, he knows too much, he'll get in the way. You're like, okay, this is where we're starting. And then we've time traveled back to them being children. We know we have to get to that real dark shit at the end, right? Like, we know, we've established it, we've earned that. And we've earned, the relationship between the two of them. We've also seen the side relationships between the other romantic couples slowly grow and change, and you're like, okay, where is this going to go? Who's got what? And it's interesting to see how intricate that can become while still playing into a world in which, you know, this dude tried to shoot them with an arrow, and Songmo, who's bleeding out already, shifts himself into the path of the arrow that has enough force on it to full on propel Songmo and Duzhao, who's behind him, through a mirror and fall into a cavern, right? Like, there's a whole bit that's going into this melodramatic moment, but they've earned it. It's an interesting conversation. Well, it's a Chinese drama, Coldrake. So Coldrake says, so wait, dude with an arrow shooting them is their first meeting? Is that Cupid? It's an interesting question because the series is a Chinese series, and so you know, Cupid is not where I would immediately go. Awesome episode 1. Do we have pictures? Awesome episode 1. Photos. Oh, I know what I can do. Not the Monkey King. Okay. That's the theme song. I don't want the theme song. I want the full opening credits. Okay. Like, it's beautiful, it's well done. Why can't I not find the stupid opening credits? Okay. I'm just trying to see if I can get that shot. Oh, okay. Somebody on TikTok was kind enough to do it for me. Okay, so spoilers for episode 1, and I muted this intentionally so you're not going to be able to hear anything, and we're not going to get anything copyright struck. But, okay, so this is them in the episode 1 before they've time traveled, right? And it doesn't matter that it's muted because... But... This shot right here, right? Like, this is an arrow going through him into her as he tries to save her, getting through with a violent enough force that she gets shoved backwards. You know, like, it's not subtle, right? It's not subtle at all. That wasn't an arrow, that was a ballista. To be fair, maybe. I wouldn't necessarily turn down that interpretation. But it is a series that is well thought out, well acted, well written, absolutely beautifully shot because the director has spent so long doing these particularly short series that you end up with framing telling so much of the story. Like, I would love to sit down with Pope after he is watched at least, if not the whole series, then at least clips of this series, so that we can have a conversation about how how well the visual storytelling and the cinematography in this series is. Like, just straight up the cinematography. But it's... Okay, I have to show you this image. No one's going to understand this image, but I have to show it to you because this is a well-framed shot and it has so much meaning that you would understand if you've actually sat through the whole series, but this shot right here. This is a magnolia tree. It has a single white blossom growing on an otherwise dead magnolia tree. This kid is being raised in a Buddhist temple. This character is really important and complex, and I'm not going to try and give any information about him away. But the shot, the framing, the way in which that white blossom is above him, he's looking up at it, but it still frames the picture of him, and it juxtaposes this kid next to him, which is important for plot reasons, but I'm not going to go into it. But all of this in the rain, perfectly framed, beautiful shot, right? Like, this is a beautiful shot. Uh, those are not stills. This shot. This is a shot of the Emperor. Again, for plot reasons, really important. Not gonna explain why because of everything. This is why art analysis should be taught in high school. Yes! Like, this is... But this is also such a beautifully shot series, right? Like, this is such a beautifully shot series, and you're sitting there going, great. This is... intentional, it works well, but this is still melodrama where the main characters are coming back, you know, time traveling back to their childhood to grow back up because they died in a violent revolution, and they're in part, you know, can they fight fate, or are they damned to be, you know, die horribly again? Like, there's melodrama, and then there's this, and like, you're like, you can have so many people discount melodramas. And I love listening to Trooper talk about the people who discount soap actors because of whatever. Like, also, this shot of Grandma and her personal attendant smiling for a variety of reasons. And I just love her as a character. Like, not gonna lie, this is a brilliant series because the women in this series, across the board, 10 out of 10, took what they were given, even if they were given the most overly dramatic, melodramatic lines, and ran with them and made them work, right? Like, and yes, there's a lot of repeated sets because they, you know, were not the highest budget series, right? Like, this is them first meeting in the snow with a spear. Which will become really important. Like, there's a whole, this series. Look at this shot. Look at this shot. I need people to talk with me about this. Is that the entire reason we're talking about this tonight? Because I've been watching Blossom? Yes. Yes, it is. Hi. I must share my obsession with people. And you know what? I don't have TikTok because I just never got it. And I don't exist on China's internet, and I have no desire to exist on China's internet. This whole shot, like, just framed beautifully, and oh god, now where I've finished, sad implications are sad. You know, kind of and look, it is a melodrama, idle period drama, soap opera, TV series. Is there death? Yes. Is there small violence against people? Yes. Because it is a period historical drama about, you know, court politics and the army, are we going to have at least one scene where the male main character is going to lose his shirt so he can get flogged? Yes. Are we then going to have a appropriate bathtub scene so that the female main character may tend the male main character's wounds as he's sitting in a ancient Chinese wooden bathtub with steam artfully arranged and dripping wet? Yes. Yes, we are. You know, like, perfectly timed moments. Also, no, that has to be much earlier. I know that there's a better shot of that because that's one of the most important scenes in the TV series. It's in the goddamn trailer. Or, OST. Where is the shot? Okay. I know I saw it earlier. Oh, here it is. Here you go. That is not the best picture, y'all. You could do better. Can't you do better? You can do better. There has to be a better version of that shot. Like, that's one of the most important framed like, you see that every time you watch the opening credits in this series until you finally get to that moment in the series and you're like, damn, that's worth it. There has to be one, right? Like, they can't have not given us a better still of, like, one of the most important moments that they show in the goddamn opening credits every single episode. Okay, so this is... here we go. Here we go. That's a little bit better. Well, no, that's the thing. That's the other thing I want to talk about is telenovela versus Chinese drama, right? Like, a lot of people I know in the United States are more than willing to say that telenovelas, American soap operas, they're just overdone. You know, we're going to talk about all the tropes that are going to be in them. You know, you're going to have the evil twin brother come back from the dead, and, you know, you can't actually marry him. He's really your brother. Dun, dun, dun. Right? Like, that level of melodrama. And a lot of people, like, watch those religiously. My Sia got, you know, Dallas, Passions, As the World Turns, Guiding Light, All My Children, General fucking Hospital. All of these series have what? Okay, what's the Nielsen rating for All My Children? Okay. So let's look at the current years, right? Like, not the 2020s, right? Ooh. Interesting. So, the Nielsen ratings for daytime soap operas are really down. When does it start? I bet it's when streaming really gets big. Okay, so in the 1990s, you're looking, you know, like, your Nielsen rating is 8. Young and the Restless is the highest, consistently, followed by All My Children, and then General Hospital. And then 1995, it goes from Young and the Restless still at the top with 7.6, and then Days of Our Lives, The Bold and the Beautiful, and All My Children. Starting in 2000, it drops down to 5 for but Young and the Restless is still at the top of that list. 2010s, it drops down to 3.7 on the Nielsen ratings, right? And that's just telling you how many households have mentioned that they've watched it. The 2023-2024 season, there are only 3 daytime soaps that are still running: The Young and the Restless, The Bold and the Beautiful, and General Hospital. The Young and the Restless is rated highest with 2.2. The Bold and the Beautiful is 1.9, and General Hospital is 1.4. And that's sad. I feel like that's sad. But people, I think that's really sad, actually. But people don't have a respect for those actors, don't have a lot of respect for those storylines, think that they're overdone, that they're tropey, that they're whatever. And I'm like, they want gritty realism. I'm like, bullshit, you want gritty realism? You just want to watch. There is no realism in Grey's Anatomy. But on the flip side, Jack Nicholson started in soaps. Sally Field started in soaps. So many people started in soaps. Um, like, all of these things happened. And you're like, okay, in the United States, they have massive viewership. People watched them consistently up until the last 10 years. In which case they started to fall off. I'm betting because of the way streaming approached things, and that changed the way people watch daytime television. Right? That's streaming. It just has to be streaming. And then, conversely, you have the telenovelas, right? Like the Spanish language telenovelas. And those have, I don't know as many of them, but those are also kind of seen as, my grandmother's TV series. They're all overdone, they're tropey, but they're really popular and people will watch them and they need to know what happens, right? Like, you need to know. Now, there are, but at the same time, then you've got a lot of repositioning of things in other countries, because like Blossom, I would say, compares to a bunch of, in style, in tone, even in plot lines, matches a lot of what they're doing with soap operas, but it is much more highly regarded. Now, Pope says, also think how difficult it is to continue to hold an audience with a few core characters for decades at a time. Actors and writers have to be damn compelling. Exactly. You have to be compelling. You have to be on top of it. Now, do I think the final ending moment of this particular movie has some issues? Yes. Is the comedy, I think, at the end of that particular, the final trope comedy at the end of that movie a problem? Yes. But the rest of Soap Dish is, I have watched on occasion just to be like, at least my life is not hers. Right? Like, at least my life is not the main character in Soap Dish. Sally Field's character in Soapy Dish. Yeah, exactly. Although considered a crime show, Law and Order in all its branches, so formula but still draws eyeballs. Look, do not mock Law and Order. It pays the bills for so many working actors in New York. And Mariska Hargitay, props to her. Bring that money in. But you're right, like, that is it's very, very different. And then you get things like K-dramas, and K-dramas are, again, span the gamut from very, very melodrama to violent to all of that. But if we're going to stick with the same kind of like idol dramas or idol period dramas or, fantasy dramas that they have, one of the most critically acclaimed and praised K-dramas ever is, oh god, Guardian, the Lonely and Great God. Okay, it is Goblin. It is also known as Goblin. Look, you can just have Goblin, right? It is also, it's called Guardian, Lonely and Great God, but it's also called Goblin. It is full-on melodrama of the best possible order, and let's jump into what my drama list thinks this is called. This series is described as, right? Again, 16 episodes, but the episodes are longer. They're an hour and 20 minutes. 20 minutes. Kim Sin was once an unbeatable general in the Goryeo military who died tragically. He now possesses immortality, but is tired of living while everyone else around him dies. For 900 years, Kim Sin has searched for his bride, a mortal who can pull out the sword and end his life. One day, he encounters Ji Yeon-tak, a positive, upbeat high school student who can see the dead and has gone through tragic events, yet still stays strong. She claims to be the goblin's bride who can end his immortal life, but what appears to be an easy task only gets complicated as the two of them fall in love. Again, my drama list, you are not wrong, but there's a lot of people would not describe that in that same kind of way. Oh, romance writing is a very separate issue, right? Like I leave aside romance writers. Harlequin is its own thing. But yes, so Goblin is also one of the most interesting things is when this war god and the god of... Look, what they don't talk about is the Odd Couple series, full-on Odd Couple domestic series that occurs within this love story between the general, who is immortal, and the god of death, right? Like, death and him are just kind of buddies, and they're sharing a house, and it may be hella gay, but it's not gay. Like, are you at a morgue? Do you need me to get you flowers? Let's talk about this whole shot. Again, hello Sly, welcome in. We're talking about melodrama and how that differs across cultures. Mostly so I can talk about Blossom. Right? So I can talk about my current favorite obsession with Chinese drama, Blossom. And how beautiful it is and absolutely gorgeous it is. Look at this shot. This is in episode 1. She just found out that her husband and her sister have been having an affair and trying to murder her at the same time. And she's like, I'm going to announcing my intention for a divorce. Like you do. 'Cause you can. So the thing I found about Chinese dramas, if they're good, I think that Blossom's really well done. I think it's really well acted. It's really well written. It's captivating. It's the right level of romantic tension that plays really well between these characters, and the greater political moment that's going through it. I think, however, that story-wise, C-dramas and K-dramas benefit. K-dramas are a little bit separate. If we're going to talk about Chinese dramas in particular, we're going to talk about the fact that Chinese dramas have to be filmed and completed before they start airing, right? Like, so you will never have a Chinese drama. Like, you might have a Chinese drama that will go, they'll be like, damn, I want season 2. And there's 2 series I think of right off the top of my head that I would wish we get season 2, but I understand why we're not going to, and it upsets me. But the majority of them are filmed as a complete story in one seasons. There's no cliffhangers. Or that's not true. If there is a cliffhanger for next season, it's because originally, remember we talked about Eternal Love? I don't know if you were here for that, Coldrake. So Eternal Love is one of the great defining 2010s genre shifting Jinja powerhouses. And it's 58 episodes long. And each of those episodes is 43 minutes. Or 45 minutes. And okay, hold that thought, Bryce, because I'm going to ask you a couple questions in a minute. So, Eternal Love is 45-minute episodes. There are 58 of them. If you watch it, it's 43 and a half hours long, right? Like, but in 2023, excuse me, no, the end of 2023, the beginning of 2024, the Chinese film controlling censor department said, no, you cannot have a season go more than 40 episodes. So all of these long, and there are some really long series, like Nirvana in Fire, which is a historic, that is not an idle period drama, that is a historic period drama, and the distinction between the two is important. But Nirvana in Fire is, just watch season 1, you don't need season 2. Well, you can acknowledge that season 2 exists, but you can get away with just watching season 1. It's a complete story. Nirvana in Fire, I believe, is like 60 episodes. Okay, so I was close. Nirvana in Fire is 54 episodes, and each, like, again, massive number of episodes. It keeps going. Joy of Life. How long is that? Joy of Life is 46 episodes, right? It's like there are a bunch of these series that are like 60 episodes, like keep going, but they have a beginning, middle, and end because they have to go through censorship before they're allowed to air, at least in China. And so because of that, you know that it's going to have an ending. Now, Boyce introduces one of my favorite Chinese dramas of all time, The King's Avatar. Hi, am I a Yang Yang fangirl? A small one. Do I also think that he's maybe not as great as everybody says he is, but he's damn pretty? Yes, I do. King's Avatar. King's Avatar is 40 episodes long for season 1. And there is a season 2, which has not been released yet, but has been filmed and it is supposed to be 40 episodes as well. Okay? It is. Boyce is laughing at me for saying you can acknowledge that season 2 exists, but you can get away with you have comparatively started King's Avatar. Look, King's Avatar is interesting because I've watched. So this tells you when I was watching. Oh, technically they're supposed to be getting a release date for King's Avatar 2 in the near future. I don't know that I agree with that. I don't know that that's going to be a good thing. No. Okay. So one of his earliest series is called Love 020. And it is 30 episodes long. And it is a contemporary drama. Yang Yang, by the way, Yang Yang is the main character in King's Avatar. And Yang Yang, or the actor who plays the main character in King's Avatar. And in Love 020, he plays the head of a software development company who falls in love with this girl, played by, Zheng Xuan, and he falls in love with this girl as they both meet on an MMORPG set in historical China that is very part of the Chinese government's push for certain ideology through media, and it's really obvious because the whole premise of certain portions of this MMORPG is that you have to have characters who are married, otherwise they can't undertake certain things. I shit you not. This is an entire plot point. Like, the characters in the game have to be married, otherwise you can't... Hawkeye, welcome in! Welcome in, Hawkeye. Hope you're doing well. Hope you had a successful end of your WWE. But yes, there is an entire plot point. There's a major plot point about how these two characters meet, because both of them had been both of their avatars in the video game are very, very high level and in separate guilds, and had been married to other characters, but then those other characters wanted to get a divorce because they had more and more romantic attention to their out-of-game players, and so they both break up, and both these high-level characters are like, well, we still need to be married in-game, otherwise we can't achieve certain in-game goals. And then they meet and fall in love, and they actually are on the same college campus, and it's a sweet little college romance. But you're like, damn, this is some shit. Oh, call the match did finally end? That's good. Yes, we are talking about Chinese like, there are some moments if you are an educated individual, you can see the not subtle Chinese government propaganda in a bunch of these TV series. And a lot of it has to do with how their censorship works, right? Like, for example, King's Avatar, right? The King's Avatar there's an entire discussion. Oh, wait. Boyce, how far into this series are you? I don't want to give anything away. I don't want to give any spoilers away. So how far into the series are you? Yeah, there might be incoming spoilers, but we'll take the spoiler tag down for right now. Like, how far into the series are you? I need to know before I can say anything else. We'll hold that thought. But there's a lot of moments. Okay, just started assembling the new team. Okay. So you may have come across certain other people have made negative comments about him being referred to as the King, right? Like, the King is not the name for his character. It's not a name he gave his character, but it's a title that was attributed to him because he's such a good player, right? Like, that's how he's being called. But there's also people who who use it negatively, and that's why they say early on that he was kicked out, is because he was getting too full of himself and he was approaching monarchy, and monarchy is bad, and we want to support the little people, and here's an entire, like, 5-minute rant by a character that's anti-monarchy and upper classes taking advantage of the lower classes, right? Like, it's not subtle. King's Avatar also has a Tencent animated series, by the way. Just throwing that out there. So, putting that aside. So, it's one of those interesting tensions that exists, particularly in Chinese dramas, of, like, the stories that exist, the stories that the creators are trying to tell, and the way in which they have to tap dance certain things to get it through censorship so it can be aired. Right? Like, Boyce is like, it's not subtle. Totally. Yeah, didn't miss that propaganda at all. It's not subtle. And the character who does it is like, okay, you're ranting about this because you got your butt kicked and you're complaining about what name some other person called him. Like, so the censorship rules in China are at times both arbitrary and not. Oh yeah, the monarchy objectively sucks kind of comment was fine, and it is possible for it to go over your head. I understand that, but it's also one of those things. Like, if you know that part of the Chinese propaganda is about how there are certain things that the Chinese propaganda is going to push. For example, they're going to be anti monarchy, they're going to be in some cases anti-democrat, but they're going to be pro-people. The government should serve the people, everyone deserves justice, and the upper classes oppressing the lower classes means that there should be, violent revolution, and all of these things are very much put forward. There's also things that end up on the censorship, which is why I get mad when people in non yeah, exactly, that's the propaganda line in China. The propaganda line is basically, you get communism or the Qing Empire comes back, and there's nothing in between. Yeah. Like, so there's an entire genre of Chinese dramas set in I forgot the actual name for it in Chinese. I'm blanking on the 1920s and 30s during the Republic, right? Like, and all of those dramas, even the ones that are basically just murder mysteries, are focused on either the decadence of, have to mention the decadence of the capitalism, have to mention the decadence and lack of, all of these ones that are specifically spy dramas that are set during this period and up into the 40s, right, are, the great martyrs for communism, and how the communist side did nothing bad during that period, at all, and we need to support this. And it's like, okay, communism is your way, or we get the Qing Empire. That is literally what happens, according to the way the censorship rules are. But what makes me mad is when people don't understand the fact that Chinese dramas, every Chinese drama that airs, so even the ones that you get on Netflix, or you watch on Viki, or you watch subtitled on YouTube, right? Like, all of those, to get aired, to be able to be viewed, had to go through censorship. So when people are like, this drama is queer baiting because they aren't making these two characters who are both male, who are both living in a house together, practicing martial arts, and raising a teenager by themselves, actually kiss on screen. And people in the West are like, that's queer baiting, and I'm like, no, it's not. That's censorship. Those are not the same things. And unfortunately, that particular series, which is called Word of Honor, you can find it on Netflix. You can no longer find it on Chinese internet at all. It became too popular. And it's not very subtle with its subtext. And people are like, very publicly pro this ship, and it was so bad that the Chinese government came down with new directions on what could or could not be acceptable as even airing, which, excuse me, made a bunch of series that people were really looking forward to seeing dead in the water. Because they just won't get by censorship anymore. There's, like, those rules people expect. Then there are the rules that people don't expect. Like, reincarnation can't happen, but it can be a dream. And isekai can't really happen, but it can if you frame it as not a history, but you're going into a, like, fully fictional world. And science fiction is fucking hard because you have to be able to get something to pass in Chinese censorship. Like, it can't be speculative science fiction. It has to be, like, science fiction that can be considered grounded, right? So, like, the three-body problem, which is one of the greatest Chinese sci-fi works in fiction. The books are really good. Ken Liu did a fabulous job on that translation. They're dark as fuck. Do not go into that series thinking that you're going to have a happy first contact. So you can have that level of low level of speculative fiction, but you can't have, like, we're going to have a colony, we can have a spaceship. Star Trek can't happen on Chinese television. So, boys, that is why reincarnation can't be discussed. Because Buddhism was one of the major state religions during the Chinese imperial period, and according to the communist period, religion is the tool of the bourgeoisie, or the proletariat, to keep the bourgeoisie down, or the bourgeoisie to keep the proletariat down. Sorry, reverse that. And so religion is all inherently bad. All religion is bad. And even though we're going to keep Confucian cultural ideas widespread throughout all of China, Buddhism is really bad. So nothing that refers to, like, Buddhist ideology, even though there's a large amount of it within our culture, and we still keep a bunch of it, but this is all of the censorship rules come out of the post-cultural revolution ideology in China. I am not, by any means, and I am not saying that I am not by any means an authority on how Chinese censorship works, or specifically why certain things are there, but some of them I know. If I firmly recommend that if you want to know more about certain things about Chinese dramas, specifically, how a lot of Chinese the drama wiki. Here we go. The drama wiki. Wait. Okay. So there is a brilliant YouTuber who I follow called Avenue X. And she lives in Canada now most of the time, but she also is from mainland China, and she worked in film editing in Chinese dramas. And so she talks specifically about reviewing Chinese dramas as they come out. She mentions a lot of information about how censorship works, why something might be censored, why something will never, whatever. She is an absolute goldmine. She's also really intelligent, and she has a lot of very film critique level breakdowns of reviewing how Chinese dramas are filmed, produced, whatever in China. And because I do not speak Chinese, some of what she critiques aren't really a problem for me anymore. Like I don't particularly I'm not a big problem for me as if uh it's not really a big problem for me if the main characters, I know if she knows that the main characters, like she can tell that the main characters have been dubbed. I can't necessarily do that, right? I haven't watched as many, so I don't know all the main dub actors, but sometimes it becomes a little bit more obvious because you can see it visually, and sometimes it's not. But like, or she says that this particular actor has a yeah, exactly. Most of them, because they're not, because most of these actors are speaking local dialects, they don't actually speak Mandarin, or their Mandarin isn't good, or those comments. She's really good at that. But because yes, boys, very similar to the way in which Russia dealt with the Russian Orthodox Church under the Soviet Union. Atheism is God is dead. Atheism is the only thing that matters, and that is the important part. Um, oh, micromanagement? You have not met micromanagement until you get certain other points in China. But so this is where a discussion is interesting, because again, there are good and bad Chinese dramas, and there's a certain level sliding scale of Chinese melodrama, or melodrama in Chinese dramas. For this particular discussion, I'm focusing on Chinese period drama, his idol dramas, whether that's a period drama or a contemporary drama, and there is, and then there's the BL, and the BL is always going to be more melodramatic than anything else. And then there's the juggernauts, right? Like people that, if I mentioned, okay, are you aware that a series called The Untamed exists? I will wait. It's all good, boys. There's a sliding scale, right? Like I was mentioning earlier, like there's historical period dramas, and then what are called idol period historical dramas, where like an idol period drama is what Blossom is. It's more focused on the romance. It's beautifully shot. It's a little bit it's a lot tropey. It may or may not have a happy ending. It will depend. But it's focused on, you're going to have, in this particular case, a time travel story where we're going to see if we can actually fight fate and win our romance because of, fight against the powers that be and bring justice and all of these good things, whatever. Versus historical period dramas where they're mostly focused on particular historical figures. They're not always historically accurate, but there's a lot of emphasis on to get by censorship. If they're talking about a real person, you have to you have to discuss that historical figure within the way in which the Chinese government discusses them, right? Like, so you can't you can't really showcase the Huang Di as a really positive figure, right? Like, you can't have like that kind of shit. And like, there are some really popular, really well done Chinese period Nirvana and Fire, a couple others that are very historical, that are a little less melodrama and more full-on Greek tragedy, right? Like there's a sliding scale of things. There's melodrama here, and then there's Greek tragedy over here, and somewhere in the middle is Shakespeare's tragedy. Right, like, because you could play Macbeth, or at least Lady Macbeth, with full-on melodrama moments, but that isn't always the case for others. And then, but you have other historical dramas and sea dramas like Nirvana and Fire, Tales from the what is it? Is Tales from the Red Palace? No. Red Palace is June Her's Korean novel. What is that called? Is that it? No, it's a really famous one. Why can I not remember that? Is that what it's called? There's a really famous Chinese historical... Yeah. So there's The Palace, which is set in the Qing dynasty, that focuses on, like, it's a harem series very focused on the goings on of the palace. And oh god, it's a really famous one that I cannot remember at the moment. It'll come to me. So, if we're going to talk about... So, if we're going to talk about martial arts films and TV series, they fall under what is called wuxia, right? Like, Hero, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Jade Sword, all of those are what is called wuxia films. And they are focused on either a world of martial artists that exists. Yeah, they're martial art period pieces. So they're martial arts. They focus on they either, like with Hero, focus on the martial artists within the actual historical events, or also focus on a world of which there's martial artists, but they're kind of separate from the actual goings on of, like, everyday quote unquote mortals, because it ties into an ideology of the Taoist immortal who practices cultivation and all of those kind of things. And not all wuxia film, deal with okay. Not all wuxia deal with, like this subworld of martial arts cultivation, or not all of them deal with cultivation, but they almost all deal with like some level of superior martial artists, and they are frequently set so that they are separate from the Princess of the Red Palace. Is that what it's called? It's set separately so that they're not actually part of the historical events, right? Like Hero is unique because Jet Li's character in that film is dealing with is supposed to be serving the actual first emperor of China, and it's supposed to be addressing the way in which the first emperor of China forced a standardization of the characters of Chinese. So it's very important to point out that that is unique because usually that those characters don't actually work or interact with real historical figures. It's supposed to be slightly separate. And so you get a lot of um Faye says I've been reading a lot of okay, so Jinja is not quite cultivation stuff. I'll put a little pin in that because I'll come back to it. Lately, and have been pondering a godbound game inspired bit, looking into Hearts of Wulin and Tianjia, Blood Silk, and Jade, but not really a fan of PBTA or Fate, respectively. Hearts of Wulin would not work for that. So Jinja isn't quite cultivation, right? Like, Jinja is all Chinese fantasy altogether, and cultivation is kind of not always fantasy, but kind of a side thing of it. Yanji Palace, there we go. Yanji Palace. I thought that's what it was. The Story of Yanji Palace. There we go. So Jinja is basically like a catch-all for all Chinese fantasy, but cultivation theory gets kind of slid out of it, while at the same time still being part of it, because it's not, if it's cultivation as discussed by like focusing on the cultivation and the character getting stronger and stronger, i.e. The characters in Untamed or Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation, or in a bunch of other stuff like that, it can be a cultivation novel that falls into a Jinja, but Jinja is also more frequently focused on like Eternal Love, 10 Miles Beach Blossoms, those kind of big fairy and love between fairy and devil, love like a galaxy. Oh, what's the other one? I'm forgotten. But a lot of those where it's much more. This is a whole clan of demons, and they're not really demons because it's much more interesting things trying to stab each other, but not really using cultivation as a shift for what it actually should be based on Taoist principles, which is what you get in stuff like Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation, or even in what's it? Why am I doing this hard way? I have Vicky for a reason, y'all. I have Vicky for a reason. Come here, Vicky. Where is my login? Okay. So where is my watch list? My watch list, because I have so many things on. Where is my watch list? Oh, I hate the way the TV here we go. I hate the way the website is set up. A Will Eternal is more of a cultivation and less of a Jinja, right? Like, it's focused on the particular characters who have magical powers, but it's all based on their cultivation and their magical whatever to get to like solo leveling kind of of stuff. Versus God of Lost Fantasy, Three Lives, Three Worlds in the Pillow Book, Legend of Yunji. Legend of Yunji isn't really Love and Redemption, Jade Dynasty, Song of Vinland. That's not. Legend of the Phoenix. That's a big Jinja. Dance of the Phoenix. It's really interesting. A bunch of these. Some of them are really, really cheesy. And I acknowledge that. But that goes into our conversation of what we're talking about today, right? Like, Guardians of Da Feng is more of a wuxia novel than a Jinja novel, right? Versus, if we're going to talk about categories, mainland China series, okay. Not Fleur Speedy. Love Like the Galaxy. That's a really big. Love Game and Eastern Fantasy. Till the End of the Moon. That was shit. I could not get through episode 1. I have things. Love Between Fairy and Devil, which I know I mentioned. Ooh, Cozy Recs. What kind of Cozy Rec are we going to talk? Are we going to talk, like, TV series Cozy Rec? Because, also, what are you defining cozy? Are we just defining cozy in, are we talking TV series? How are we defining cozy? Because those are very important things, because I have a bunch of things to rec, but I need to know, you know, how we're defining things. Books. Okay, books is good. How are we defining cozy? Right, because, like, preferably wuxia or jinja. Okay. So there is a whole lot of most of what I have in books for wuxia or jinja is going to be, let's lightly call it lighthearted. Okay, most of what I have for that is not going to be that. Most of that's Danmei. I'm going to be honest. Most of what I have for that is Danmei. And not a lot of it's lighthearted. Oh, no, that's not lighthearted, and it doesn't have a happy ending. Um, sorry, I don't think I've got lighthearted books. Um, Mostly because, um, the majority of the books that I read that are like Chinese are Chinese danmei, Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation. Oh no, Hero's Official's Blessing is a Jinja and Wuja. That actually makes sense because it's a crossover. It's about um, gods, and there is an overarching plot, and there is a kind of romance. I mean, Heaven Official's Blessing is as close as you're gonna get. With light-hearted ish, not really, but it has a positive ending, and it's kind of sweet in places when the Ghost King isn't murdering everybody who looks at his lover. I'm just saying. Yeah, yeah. We'll leave that there. Uh, but but um yeah, also Heaven Official's Blessing has season 1 is the for the animated series is on Crunchyroll, along with the special holiday episode. Um but yeah, there's a lot of stuff that kind of, oh, Legend of Anle is would be one. Princess and the Werewolf, but those are not books. Those are TV series, and I should remember that you're asking about books. Um, there's a whole level of melodrama when it comes to Jinja that is just over the top, right? Like we've left we are looking at soap opera level of depictions of something. And like for example, Love Between Fairy and Devil, which came out in 2022, is considered one of the highest, one of the, after 10 mile, Love Eternal, 10 Miles of Peach Blossoms, whatever you want to call it, um, is the best and most, of the modern age, is the new version of 10 Miles of Peach Blossoms. So, uh, this is Love Between Fairy and Devil. According to legend, Dongfang Chin Kong of the Moon Tribe became an emotionless monster to gain power, killing his father, seizing the title of Moon Supreme, and leading 100,000 Moon Tribe soldiers on a path of destruction. To stop him, the first god of war, Shui Yun Tian, sacrificed her primordial spirit, sealing Dongfang Ching Kong's army and locking him in the Hotian Tower. 30,000 years later, okay, a disturbance in the Hotian matrix draws Orchid, a weak flower fairy, into the tower where she encounters the Moon Supreme. Their meeting triggers a series of events that could once again threaten the world's fate. Or, they fall in love and kiss a lot. And it's really pretty. And, like, how can you take a man who's wearing that kind of headpiece seriously? But you do. Yeah, really pretty as they seal the fate of the world. Pretty much. Like, look at this. Just Look at this. I would like to point out this. Like, this is full Jinja at its most. I like having cocoa to go with your Moon Supreme. Moon Supreme sounds like a delicious dessert. I mean, you're probably not wrong. Where is that shot? There has to be one of that shot. It's one of those famous shots. Oh, look. This is them as humans in the Tang Dynasty. That's some Thranduil levels of fabulous. Yes. Yes, it is. It is Thranduil levels of fabulousness. All up in this. Well, let's talk about Thranduil levels of fabulousness on this man. Like, his eyeliner is better than mine is. I'm not currently wearing any, but even if I were, his eyeliner would be better than mine. At all times. And then there's this getup. Like, okay. But we taking this shit seriously because this is a big old romance. And look, isn't she sweet? This is your little fairy who's gonna fall in love with the big bad demon. Oh, that's exalted levels over the top? Yes, yes it is. Look, see? They're happy! Ish. That's Skyrim levels of armor decadence. Yes. You know, and all of these, a lot of the times, the big conceit between these is that they're, you know, there's already fate involved, there's, you know, you're going to have major flashbacks. Exalted as part of a cultivation game would be interesting. You know what I want to do is I would want to go on to, like, Chinese diaspora Reddit and be like, hey, y'all ever adapt any games for cultivation? And let's not play Legend of the Ten Rings as part of that. Like, oh yes, and the underwater kissing. Because somebody fell into water and cannot swim and he needs to kiss her to give her breath, air. Not that that's how that works. At all. Side note. For those of you watching at home who don't know this, your exhalation is carbon dioxide. And if you are underwater, it's not going to work. Maybe that's how it works for fairies or devils. I mean, you're not wrong. Oh, first edition Exalted. I do not have first edition Exalted. I should look at that. Unless you really don't care if they live or not. True! But then why are you wasting your own air? Like, that would be my thing. Devil's Exhale, pure oxygen. I mean, I'm just gonna leave this image here for you, Pope, and leave that there for you. Just saying. Just saying. Just this little moment for absolutely no reason whatsoever tied to Pope's last comment. None at all. Still have limited edition, first edition Exalted book I bought when it came out and have never had a game get past character creation. That is sadness. Like, it's just full on. This is just full on, let's see. Also, not gonna lie, the way kissing is shot in Chinese dramas is so awkward. It's so awkward. Even when it's not supposed to be awkward, it's awkward. Place where I cannot really engage with Exalted because of a person whose name I prefer not to put in my mouth. Or, I mean, you are fair to do that. I totally understand that, Krellin. Protect your peace. Like, again. And these are kind of, you know, just taken as, oh yeah, and Fairy and Devil was one of the most popular TV series when it aired. Wait, there has to be a better picture of her, because she's... Oh, the full look! Oh, it's not the best picture of that. There has to be a better picture of him in the full look. Like... full on... fight the power. I'm here to murder you and everyone you ever thought of. Because there is one. Like, here we go! If Thranduil was corrupted by Shelob and made it get Chinese, that is what that whole costume is giving. Yes, you are correct, Krellin. It is not anyone who actually was involved with the creation of Exalted, but they just, particular individual just ran a stream and it was a shithead. Let's all be honest. They were a shithead. And I am totally understanding and agreeing with you. But yes, this is giving Chinese Thranduil corrupted by Shelob. Oh yes, and would you like to see his brother? Like, yeah, a lot of people wish they could pull that off. Oh, I'm sorry, Krellin. It's made even better with this shot that has a cape. Y'all, it has a cape. Looks like demonic corruption from here. It's ice. You know, he's shiny. And he has a flower. Caves make everything better? Yes. See? Cave, like, look at the... Not gonna lie. Can you all see the detail on... I'm gonna put the link in chat so you can see what we're looking at. Because the embroidery detail on this is... Mwah. Like, the jacquard fabric that was worked within, and then the layers of the different subtle embroidery with the subtle silver threads. And then the plastic ice is just... Like, I kind of feel bad because that has to be uncomfortable. But it's a look. There was thought. There was design. There was creativity put into this. And the character design. And they did not skip, and most period dramas and Jinja dramas, you can tell that, like, because they're going to invest a lot in, like, the CGI effects for the magic, and so that they don't do a lot of, that's where they allocate their budget. So, you know, other things kind of fall away. Fairy and Devil, that didn't happen. The fabrics. God, the fabrics in this series are peak. Just so much gorgeous fabrics. Like, look at this all of this beautiful sky, the kind of okay walkway, the gorgeous costumes that they're wearing, and this cheap-ass CGI... I don't know if you... There you go. Cheap-ass CGI building that they tacked on the side there. Like, really? Really? It's like, there's no texture. There's no shadows on it at all. So flat. Yep. Agree with you there, Krellin. Like, all this beautiful drapiness that is also random sea whale or sky whale. Let's oversaturate everything so we can't see the main characters. Like, yeah. Hypothetically, would it be really petty of me to decrease my rating of a book series on Goodreads because they started making jokes taking shots at Jersey? I mean, were they good jokes about Jersey? Because there are, you know, some okay jokes about Jersey. I make a few of them. Oh, the typical lazy stuff, then yeah, reduce your Goodreads. I mean, it's like, if you're gonna... Yeah, if the author's not from here, like, I'm part of the tri-state. I get to make jokes about Jersey. And people in Jersey can make jokes about Connecticut. We acknowledge this, and we go from there, right? Like, we make effort to put good ones in there, you know? Not the lazy shit. But this whole conversation got started because of, admittedly, Blossom, but also because one of the things I do at work is I listen to a lot, when it's downtime and there's not a lot going on, I listen to a lot of YouTube video essays. And I just finished Biz Barclay's video essay deep dive into Flowers in the Attic, discussing all 4 books and the rest of, like, VC Andrews and the way in which VC Andrews, after she died, was treated by her publisher, and how she's still being treated by how her estate still treats her name and likeness. God. But one of the things that Biz Barclay really discusses in that, what is it, 4.5 hour video, is really good. Really enjoyed it. I did watch all 4.5 hours of it. Is the tropes of Southern Gothic that Flowers in the Attic and the whole Dollanganger series, Dollanganger Foxworth quartet deals with, right? Like, there's a lot going on in that series. And if you don't know, spoilers for Flowers in the Attic, because it is important to discuss here. We are going to be discussing spoilers for Flowers in the Attic, and God, don't get me demonetized right away. Oh, I don't get monetized anyway, so never mind. Flowers in the Attic, V.C. Andrews, frequently referred to as the incest book, which is not wrong, it's just not 100% right. And it's a lot more about messy family dynamics and Southern Gothic. And so Biz Barclay does a really good job of discussing the tropes of Southern... Raise your hands in chat if you've actually read Flowers in the Attic and not just seen either the 1987 film or the 2014 series of films on Lifetime. Okay, so no on all accounts from Hawkeye. I'm going to put giant content warnings for Flowers in the Attic. Flowers in the Attic is a look at how wealth, family, and privilege and do horrible, messed up things to people, and it is a gothic, like, it's like a gothic horror, romance. It's a gothic romance style, but it's written in the Southern Gothic style. Yeah, that's fair, Carlin. You don't know if you... Carlin says they don't remember if they read it or absorbed information via osmosis around me. That is entirely fair. Like, the original quartet by V.C. Andrews for the Dollanganger series was astronomically popular. Like, it is so popular that people didn't expect it to be, because it is... there is incest. Now... I would like to preface this that, to my knowledge, 99.999% of the unfortunate incest in this book is consensual. And has to do with other things. But the actual concept of Flowers in the Attic is that there's this family, and the book is actually told from Kathy's perspective, and Kathy is the daughter of this family, or the eldest daughter of this family, and she has an older brother named Chris, and when we first meet her, she's 6, and she has her mother's about to have no baby, and then we find out the new baby is actually twins, and they're Corey and Carrie, a boy and a girl, right? So there are 4 kids. Chris is 2 years older than Kathy, and then Kathy is 6 years older than the twins. And when Kathy is 12, right, so when the twins are 6, Kathy's father dies, and they don't have any money. And this is set in like in the 60s, right? It's set in the 60s, which is an important point because it goes into this. So they don't have any money, so they need money. And I've done a thing and feel no guilt. Wait, what? What have you done? Good Lord. Arthur. Thank you. Um, but, so, when Kathy is 12, and the whole book is from her perspective, her father dies, they're in debt, they don't have any money, and her mother is like, well, don't worry, my parents are actually like super, super wealthy, and they live in Virginia, and we're gonna go, and they'll take care of you, and you'll get to, like, go yachting and have a horse and all of these things. No big deal. They get on the train, they go from Pennsylvania to Virginia. Oh, yeah, by the way, your name isn't actually Dollenganger, it's Foxworthy. And that's just because, like, that's what, like, my family's name is, and we're super, super wealthy, and my parents really didn't approve of me getting married, so whatever. Fast forward. No, we're gonna sneak into this house at night and meet the grandmother. One of the most hated, yet oddly feel bad for, but you never really want to feel bad for, and the only reason you feel bad for her is because V.C. Andrews has such a brilliant writing style, figure in the grandmother, and they end up being like, well, you can't, I have to break it to my dad gently that I had kids, right? So, like, you're gonna just, like, hide in this attic. And then the kids get trapped in the attic for, like, 3 years. And then there's, like, child abuse and sexualization, and eventually it comes out that their mother, like, Kathy's mother, Corinne, there's a whole thing with C names here. Kathy's mother, Corinne, married her half-uncle, and then the later books make it more complicated, but half-uncle. And so her father is of the opinion that if she had kids, that they would be the devil's issue. And then this whole kind of pressure point thing, trapped in the attic, malnutrition, child abuse, badness, leads to a romance between Kathy and Chris. And I would like to preface this again with the fact that they are 12 and 14 when they get locked in the attic, and they are 17 and 15 when they escape the attic. And VC, and the reason I am talking about this is because Biz Barclay talks about it, and it is a very important point. VC Andrews is such a brilliant writer that you follow this story, and there are little hints and breadcrumbs that this is where she is going. But at the same time, when it happens, you're like, oh, this kind of makes sense. And you feel bad because it's the incest book, and you're like, incest bad, and oh, Krellin, you also have to add in the fact the horribly abusive grandmother who first puts the idea of sexualizing them in their heads, because there's this whole thing. Oh, hey, House of Dreams. Hey, Hector, welcome in. Sorry, we've shifted to talking right now about Flowers in the Attic, so content warning for Flowers in the Attic and its sequels. Like, there's an entire scene where there's a scene where Kathy and Chris manage to get out of the attic and by a rope and go down, and it's summer, and so they want to go swimming in the lake, and they end up skinny dipping because they can't, like, they have to take their clothes off so that they don't get them wet, because they don't have a lot of clothes, because their grandmother and their mother have locked them in the attic for 3 years. They yeah, exactly. The grandmother is harping about how horrible incest is. You can't let your brother see you naked. You can't let your... Did you look at her when she was, trapped in an attic, the two of them with very limited access to a bathroom? Oh, did you happen to see this? Also, the two older siblings are being pushed into being caregivers and supplement, acting as parents to the twins. Yeah, so they go skinny dipping, and the reason they end up skinny dipping and there's sexualization happening is because nobody's bought at all at any point Kathy a bra. Like, Kathy doesn't have a bra. It's a plot point in the book that nobody does this. And it's the grandmother is evil. The grandmother is straight up weirdly evil, and yet you hate her. And then you get to the later books and you realize, yes, I still hate her. She is evil. But she'd be married to Malcolm Foxworthy, and I feel kind of bad for her being married to Malcolm Foxworthy, right? Like, there's a whole discussion about abusers and cycles of abuse and all of these things that can go into Olivia Foxworthy. And Olivia Foxworthy, by the way, is the name of the grandmother, but you don't find that out in book one. She's only ever referred to as the grandmother. But this whole thing came up because Biz Barclay makes a very good point when she's discussed in her video, when I was listening to her video essay, where she does this deep dive, and she's talking specifically about the gothic nature of V.C. Andrews' work and the very particular Southern Gothic nature of V.C. Andrews' work. And, she's talking about the tropes and what leads this, and I think the only thing I think she didn't get into, but again, it's a 4.5 hour long video essay. I understand why she can't cover everything. You get to, like, go... It's like, she's discussing, so Biz Barclay is discussing the tropes of, like, Gothic horror and Gothic romance specifically, and I'm like, I want to talk about the melodrama factors in Flowers in the Attic, right? Like, because if you just look at the plot points of the series of the Quartet of Flowers in the Attic, you are full on looking at melodrama all over the place. Like, there is a joke among people who, like, on threads and on posts of people who read V.C. Andrews, is like, you don't come to V.C. Andrews looking for quasi-logical plot points. You come to V.C. Andrews for the family tree that looks like a wreath. That is, in fact, a quote that is frequently used. Last minute reveals, sudden, dun dun dun, like, soap opera moments. Like, V.C. Andrews is a melodrama author, but she is a brilliant author. And she uses language in such a way that you're like, yeah, this is going to be an incest book, and I don't support incest. Also, as an anthropologist, I recognize that incest is the one taboo that exists across cultures. However, it is also the one taboo. It is taboo across all cultures on the planet. However, the definition of incest changes across all cultures of the planet, and that has to do with a lot of different reasons. Also, incest is messy in so many ways, and I am not supporting sexual assault of minors by adults, and I am not supporting sexual assault in any way, shape, or form, or grooming, which is also a big problem that comes into this. But, like, you read Flowers in the Attic, and you see how the situation causes the relationship between Chris and Kathy to be like, it makes sense. You want them to Like, again, spoiler warning for the last book. The last book is Seeds of Yesterday, right? The last book is Seeds of Yesterday is the end of the all four. It's all four is, Flowers in the Attic, Petals on the Wind, If There Be Thorns, and the Seeds of Yesterday. So Seeds of Yesterday is the last of the first four of the original four books. And the ending description of Seeds of Yesterday is, Chris and Kathy are older, and by older I mean 50, and now, there's this whole bit, and then there's this moment, and we get to the end of their lives. Spoiler warning, again, if you don't want to be spoilers for the end of the book series that's been out since 1984, but I'm going to give you the spoiler warning again. Okay? Spoilers. Spoilers. So Chris dies in a car accident, and, that's a thing. And there's this whole bit that happens with it, and there's trauma and whatever, and then Kathy eventually gets to a point where, she's old, and she's, it's just her time, and she writes this beautiful note to her sons, and she basically says, and, there's flowers in the attic, and I'm waiting, and Chris has waited long enough for me, so I'm going to go join him, at the garden in the sky, right? Like, it's this beautifully written thing, and you're like, oh, this is beautiful romance, and then you stop and go, no, wait, they're siblings. That's the level of melodrama that I want to discuss with people, because you take that, and then you apply it to what we were talking about, like, Chinese level of melodrama, and, like, if you just look at the plot points of the Dollenganger series, and you're like, this would get rejected by General Hospital, right? Like, as general plot points. But V.C. Andrews made it work, because she was that good of a writer. Yeah, the Savannah book is nowhere near... I know what Savannah book you're talking about. No, it is... V.C. Andrews' Dollenganger is, like... V.C. Andrews writes gothic horror in a very... It's not florid prose, it is beautiful prose. And Hector, I do agree with you. Like, the prequel bit where in Seeds of Yesterday, where you find out about Olivia and, like, her whole situation with Malcolm and Malcolm's brother, and/or the whole bit with, like, the half-brother and the other woman and Alicia and Malcolm's stepmother, like, boom, horrible. You're like, I don't want to feel bad for this woman, because I know she horribly abused these children. And sounds like a beautiful sledgehammer to the ankles. There is a scene, again, spoiler warning going up, spoiler warning going up, spoiler warning going up. There is a scene in Flowers in the Attic where, like, multiple scenes where she whips those children, like, full on does this, whipping the kids because to punish them for any perceived violation of what she believes is any sinful nature, right? But there is literally a scene where just random circumstances have happened that, because of close quarters, Chris happens to see Kathy getting changed, and the grandmother walks in. Oh no, she whips them. It literally, there's a distinction there. She, like, flogs them. It's, like, horrible. And when I say that you'll understand why this is an important distinction here in a second, Hawkeye, she catches them, or she catches what she thinks is Chris watching Kathy get changed, and really what happens is Chris walked in the door, and so did the grandmother, and that's what happened. And to punish Kathy for what she believes is Kathy's sinful nature, she dumps tar on Kathy's head. Right? Like, she dumps tar on a child. Right? Like, this is... This is not a... And then we have a whole scene where Chris is, bless him, trying to save his sister's hair and trying to clean it out carefully in whatever, like, washing her hair as carefully as possible, and it doesn't work. He has to cut all of her hair off. But, like... This is also the book, again, spoiler warning, where there is a child death caused by donuts. Okay? A child's death is caused because the grandmother intentionally starves the kids in the attic and then gives them a bunch of donuts that have been laced in powdered sugar with arsenic. And one of the twins, the younger children, dies because of it. Right? Like, Olivia Foxworthy, the grandmother, is a horrible person. And then you get to book 4, and you're like, fuck. I want to still be, like, really, 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 really mad at you, but I can only be really mad at you. Also, the possibility that Malcolm Foxworthy possesses his great-grandson. It's a thing. Yeah, see, V.C. Andrews is a beautiful writer. She writes very interesting gothic horror. It is very compelling, and it is beautifully written. But if you, like, just bullet point her plots, you're like, this is a soap opera. Like, there is a full-on brother comes back from the dead because he was traveling through, like, so Malcolm Foxworthy had 2 sons before he had his daughter, Corinne. Corinne is the mother of the kids that end up in the attic, right? So these are the kids in the attic have 2 uncles. They've never met. They don't know what happened. One of them is dead, and then the other one is presumed dead. He's off. He was traveling in Europe, and he's been presumed dead. Book 4 brings this guy back from the dead, because his plane had gone down in the Swiss Alps, and for 15 years, or 20, whatever, like 20 years or something, he lived in a monastery in the Alps. And then his grandnephew begins to plot to rebuild his family estate, Foxworthy Hall, and he goes to help. He's also a raging misogynistic asshole who hates women and, is very, very, very pro-violence to women. But, like, we're gonna bring him back from the dead. So, if you just look at the bullet points of the plot of V.C. Andrews' books, and she wrote other books other than the Dollenganger series, like, there's 3 other books that don't have incest in them. Kind of. No, they have incest in them, but not the same way. There's a lot more interesting murder that happens. But you do get, and is very important to point out, she died in 1987. Her publisher lied to everyone and their brother and said, oh no, she's still writing. And didn't even acknowledge that she died until, like, 1991. And even then it's like, oh no, we have a bunch of, like, books, because she has so many manuscripts. There hadn't been a manuscript. Any book published after 1987 with the name V.C. Andrews on it was ghostwritten by, most of them, a particular individual called Andrew Niederman, who, V.C. Andrews' original editor did not have nice things to say about. Um, like she just didn't like him. So that's a thing that exists. And it's a very interesting you know look at what gets called melodrama and what doesn't, right? Like, if at its core I could say, based on the definition that we're using, this a play or film, I'm also going to add book because, whatever, in which the plot is often sensational and the characters may display exaggerated emotion, right? Like, if we take that definition and we could apply that to V.C. Andrews and come back with the Doppelganger series is straight up. It is very, 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 very much melodrama. But we don't. We call it Southern Gothic. We talk about the way in which it's interestingly dark and pulls at your soul and all of this stuff is like, yeah, but that doesn't not make it melodrama, right? Like it doesn't negate the melodramatic aspects of this book. It just so happens that those the melodrama of the book also is included in a genre or is well written enough that we're willing to overlook the melodrama portion and just say it's Southern Gothic. Like that's what intrigues me about how melodrama is discussed, right? Because, like, sometimes melodrama is really good and I really enjoy it. It's why I'm watching Blossom and loving every minute of it and taking my time with it and being like, yes, I am on episode 30. I just finished episode 30 of a 34 episode series, and I've only been watching like 2 or 3 episodes a day, so I don't become overwhelmed, right? So, because I want to sit in it and I want to think about it. I want to think about how these characters develop and what those changes mean. So I guess the question I have to pass off to you all is, what is your favorite aspect or particular melodrama, right? Like, when does melodrama work for you? When Oh, I feel you, Hector. I feel you. Melodrama in general sometimes works really, really well. So basically, when it embraces when it embraces the supernatural themes, okay, and Krellin is like, I enjoy melodrama when it's not afraid to be melodrama, like telenovelas. Okay, so like that's the thing is like, we are embracing um the nature of the work, right? Like, we are not denying the Pope is saying melodrama works best for me when it's paired with political intrigue or thrillers. I think you would like Blossom then, because there's a lot of political intrigue and quasi thriller involved in this. Again, I would like to point out that the series begins with a time travel because people die. Um, or when it's thriller linchpin aspect like Riverdale. I have so many problems with Riverdale. Like, I wanted to like that, and I just couldn't. I love it when pushed to farcical extremes or when they try not to look like a melodrama when they are. That's also fair. Carlin says, that was Hawkeye, and Carlin says, if we want to go with American media, Soap. The series Soap is an excellent self-embracing melodrama. And Carlin also says, I wanted to like Riverdale too, had to nope out after season 2. I mean, you got further than I did. you got further than I did. And I was like, why is our Ace King Jughead getting involved with anyone? You know, Jughead's romantic relationship is canonically with burgers. But that's just, me. And I think it will be interesting, let alone ruining the core conflict of Betty versus Veronica. Like, that's what Archie is. Yep. Leave Betty and Veronica. Let them have their melodrama. Let them be, at times, the strictest of enemies, and at other times, the best of friends. But also be like, we might be fighting occasionally, but we are not actually fighting over Archie. Because no one actually fights over Archie. It's just like side tangential. We're arguing about other stuff, and then we throw Archie in as part of the agreement because he's just there. And is deathly afraid of commitment to anything. Archie is literally the definition of afraid of commitment. Which I think works for his brand of melodrama. Hawkeye says, I still love the original riddle of Betty and Veronica. They were originally drawn to look exactly alike, except for their hair color, to test the old trope of do men prefer blondes or brunettes. This is true. It is true. You can go look it up. That was actually a thing that happened. They changed it later to give Veronica more slightly different features, and they didn't have to retcon it. They just basically said she put makeup on and it changed her facial structure. And was interesting. Probably because they realized they needed, in the visual medium, to differentiate the characters a little bit better, so that, if they were only being shown in black and white, they weren't having that problem. Hector says, I like CWWB melodramas, if I'm being honest. One Tree Hill, Dawson's Creek. Look. One Tree Hill, Dawson's Creek. We can all acknowledge that Team Joey was the right choice. She picked the wrong one. Fuck you, Dawson. I have no shame about that one. You're right. Like, that's the kind of melodrama. When I was a teenager, I liked that level of melodrama. I have since grown up, so I prefer slightly more aged up characters to kind of deal with, and more aged up discussions to happen. It's like One Tree Hill is a little bit better. Exactly. That was the whole point, Colin. You're exactly right. To be honest, putting makeup on is meant to accentuate certain parts or over other parts, so it's sort of like changing facial structure. No. Hector agrees with me that Team Joey was the best choice, and fuck you, Dawson. Just in general. Look, if we're talking about the WB and CW or whatever that station is and what its name has gone through like 6 different things, and we're going to acknowledge the fact that there are some team dramas that come out of that, we need to acknowledge the height of melodrama that was on that show, and that is beauty. I would like to point that out. If you have not seen that, please go watch it and appreciate Ron Perlman as the Beast, living in the sewers and subway tunnels under Central Park in the 80s and 90s. Because we could. So, like, the Netflix telenovelas, I will watch I won't binge watch a telenovela the way I will a C-drama or a K-drama. Like, a C-drama or a K-drama, because of the way they're filmed, they always have an overarching plot, and it's always going to be contained within the episodes that they're going to have. I can just binge watch like 4 or 5 of those. If it's a telenovela, I will watch an episode at a time, right? Like, I'll just open, it's like the same thing I do with like, don't do this anymore. I don't do the same thing with like, with I'll do the same kind of thing with like soap operas, but at the same time, I didn't really have to, because again, my Sia was dedicated to all of those soap operas to the point that she was the first person I knew who invested in a DVR so that she could record all of her shows. Because there was a limited amount of space on the VHS that she would use to record everything on, so that they would, like, she and her sister would record it, had the timer set on the VHS. They were the people, they would, like, the most dedicated people. They set the timer on the VHS so they would record the episode, and then they would get home and then watch the episode, and then put the VHS tape in and set the whole thing up so they could record tomorrow's episode while they were at work. Dedicated. Beauty and the Beast is absolutely gorgeous, and I will hear no notes about it. Although, my mother and I, so we used to watch Beauty and the Beast. Yay. But what we really did is, so I am a chronic acute asthmatic, and this meant to a long period of time I was in and out of school just because I couldn't breathe and caused problems during in high school. To the point that I had memorized the weekly schedule for the Sci-Fi Channel. Because the Sci-Fi Channel used to be from 9 a.m. until 7, they would go until the last episode would end at 6 p.m. Just do blocks of a particular TV series on a particular day. And used to be Mondays were Dark Shadows. Tuesdays was Twilight, or the Twilight Zone. Then you had a bunch of other, like, their original series, but then there was also like Star Trek Day and Stargate Day, and I don't remember. But we would watch, like, my mother watched the Dark Shadows soap opera TV series, not whatever the hell Johnny Depp performed in, religiously when it was airing when she was little. Fast forward to me being sick from high school and watching with her during the day and having wonderfully complex conversations about Barnabas Collins, and just all of that. And Pope says, I will say, pro wrestling uses a number of tools that melodrama uses. Both have ties back to commedia. See, I agree. And Hawkeye agrees with me too. Or agrees with that too. There is a very beautiful way in which that is being applied to melodrama. Or melodrama is being applied to that medium. But yeah, I think it comes back to. But if we think about that again, pro wrestling, while popular, is not seen as high art, right? Like, stop and think, not even high art. It's not seen as culturally acceptable. Not culturally acceptable. That's not the right term, because it is culturally acceptable. It's not seen as in the same breath as, like, the cultural zeitgeist around, say, The Sopranos, right? Or not even like prestige television. Like, I shouldn't be using prestige television because that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about, like, it's kind of Vince McMahon thought of himself as a lot of things. Because it's like the level of melodrama is seen as making it a second level art form versus in other countries where the melodrama is seen as part of the heightening of the text or the work, right? Like, it's seen as a positive. So then you get a bunch of different kind of cultural interpretations of that. Hector says, it's interesting because I believe American Horror Story Freak Show also had strong melodrama elements mixed in with the horror. I could believe that. Right? But isn't it, correct me if I am wrong, because I'm not a horror person. I have a very complicated, like, I prefer thrillers to horrors, and I particular types of thrillers, psychological thrillers rather than, whatever. And but as I recall, it is Freak Show was the least well received, both critically. It was the least well received critically of the American Horror Stories. I believe is correct. And it intrigues me because if I believe that is, I mean, like, I believe that is true. I believe that it is the least well received of the American Horror Stories. Is that because critics do not value the melodrama the same way? Did it being okay, so American Horror Story, right? let's... Okay, so Murder House... Murder House, Asylum, Coven, well, Freak Show, Cult, double feature, Hotel, Apocalypse, New York City, Roanoke, and Coven. 2013. So Asylum is season 2, and Freak Show is season 4. And people keep talking about how you should watch Freak Show first and then watch Asylum. And a lot of what I'm seeing really is the at least the reviewers my seasons. Okay, so Murder House is 72% on Rotten Tomatoes. Asylum is 84% on Rotten Tomatoes. Coven is 85%. Then they go downhill. Freak Show is 73, 74, 77, maybe? I don't know. It's moving. Hotel is the worst at 64. Roanoke is 74. Cult is 73. Apocalypse is 79. And then you get back up into the 80s for 1984 double feature. NYC drops again, and then Delicate. So it is one of the lesser rated. So it also is the lesser... Yeah, so a lot of the reviews here on, again, Rotten Tomatoes, take that as what you want about it, right? A lot of the reviews for Freak Show, that is the season that does embrace more of the melodrama, discuss that as a negative. So, again, take that with whatever you think, because it's on Rotten Tomatoes. So, you know, I think that's an interesting point, right? Like, Netflix's Fall of the House of Usher is very good, but what was the other one that was part of that Netflix horror section? Not Beachley, Haunting Hill House, right? Netflix's Hill House fully embraced the melodrama, and that's horror. Very well received publicly, not so well received critically. And so people, you know, it's not, yeah, Hill House was solid, right? Like, again, I've watched it. I am not the demographic. I have realized and I have agreed I am not the demographic for horror as just horror, right? Like, there exists other things I don't deny their existence. I understand why a lot of people would have that opinion. I'm just not the demographic for it. But I also recognize that a lot of that series a lot of the enjoyment for some people come from that series really does come from the melodrama of it, right? Like, we want to talk about melodrama that is making shit tons of money right now. Or let us now in this moment full on acknowledge that there is currently in the United States a new queen of melodrama, and her name is Shonda Rhimes. Right? Right, like, full on. Shonda Rhimes. From Scandal to How to Get Away with Murder to Bridgerton. Shonda Rhimes is now the queen and ruler and empress of melodrama land in the United States. And I think it does... Hector agrees with me. That Shonda Rhimes is the queen. And it is that... And Shonda gets a lot of positive acclaim for her from the audiences, right? There is a positive feeling from her or towards her from critics, but there's also a level of like, let's talk about it, right? Like, people will talk about Grey's Anatomy, Scandal, How to Get Away with Your Murder, Bridgerton. Oh, these are really enjoyable. And they're beautifully filmed, or sometimes they're not. And the characters are okay, and like, but no one talks about the plot. Then you sit and you look at these plots and you go, oh yeah, this is melodrama all over the place. And so Shonda Rhimes, queen that she is, we appreciate her for doing the work, right? Like, putting the money in and doing the work. But we also need to acknowledge that she is not being viewed, right? Like, by the critics, the general zeitgeist, as creating not just high art, but like, I guess I want to say, like, she's creating populist art and embracing the melodrama in there. At the same time, you'll be like, okay, pablum for the masses, I mean, that works, but it's not 100% right. Alright, like, there's other... Like, if we're talking pablum of the masses, it's Sweet Magnolias. And I unironically love Sweet Magnolias. Like, I enjoy Scandal at points. I actually like How to Get Away with Murder more, but that's because it has Viola Davis, and Viola Davis is the queen, and she does nothing wrong ever in her entire existence. So, and I like portions of Scandal, but other portions of Scandal I'm like, eh. So, Pope, I didn't say Steel Magnolias, which I also love unironically, which is where that line's the higher the hair, the closer to God comes from. I said Sweet Magnolias, which is a series of. Well, it's actually technically on Netflix as a TV series, but it started life as a series of small town southern romance novels around a group of friends who are all older in life. And look, this is one of the lines that's in this TV series, and it starts with the main character of the series finding out that her husband has been cheating on her, and that he got his he's the local dentist in town, and he got his dental hygienist and receptionist pregnant, and she is significantly younger than he is. Like, she might be in like 23. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the main character is in her 30s, and or even 40s. No, they have a kid who's in high school on the football team, and it's like this whole thing. And so, oh my god. And so there is a line where the bless her heart, the receptionist dental hygienist who is pregnant, who is like, well, I was comes to apologize and talk to her and try and like bond with the kids because it's going to be complicated. And you know, she, her friends are talking to her on margarita night afterwards, like, so what did you do? And she goes, well, I did what every good Lutheran woman would have done. I walked by her very calmly and quietly, smiled politely, closed the door, and then put my ear right up next to it to hear exactly what she was saying to my son. Right? Like, that's what we're talking about here. Also, the group of girlfriends, their three friends, have a margarita night every Thursday. And it is so well known in this small town that their kids just go like, oh, so where's the margarita night? And your mom was going to be there? All right, then we're going to go over here. It is a thing. So, like, West Wing and Newsroom. This is another case, okay? So this is where we're going to talk about this. West Wing, I say, definitely has some elements of melodramatic moments, but I don't think it counts as a melodrama, right? Like, or Newsroom. I think they both use melodramatic moments, but I don't think they are themselves are melodramas. And I don't say that because of the difference between, that he um and I don't think it has to do with who made it. I think it just has to do with the writing and the style of the story that is being told, right? Like, I think the style that's being told is in Newsroom and West Wing, that it's not leaning into the melodrama as part of the storytelling. It's more about the emotions, right? Like, going back to that definition that we're using, a play or a film in which the plot is often sensational and the characters may display exaggerated emotion. I don't think the plot in either West Wing or Newsroom is sensational for within the world of the plot that they're building, right? Like, it's not sensational for a lot of the things that happen in either West Wing or Newsroom, and I think it has to do with the setting, right? Like, but by the same token, I do recognize that there's a lot of melodramatic moments in both West Wing and Newsroom. Oh yeah, I forget. Heather Headley's in this series of Sweet Magnolias. And that's why I think she is absolutely wonderful. And I love that whole series. Like, I freely acknowledge that I was like, why did I finally start watching Sweet Magnolias? I started watching Sweet Magnolias because I was prepping for Carousel Court. And I had binged watched, right? Binged watched Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, Steel Magnolias, Arsenic and Old Lace, and this was the next thing that Netflix recommended for me. Have we been at this for 3.5 hours? We have been at this for 3.5 hours. There's no need to, I have solid evidence. So, when I started watching Sweet Magnolias, it was part of my not quite prep, but also like inspiration / prep for what eventually would become Carousel Court. If you don't know what that is, it is a high concept YouTube series I did, starring a bunch of my wonderful fabulous players, where it's an alternate history with supernatural creatures come out of the reveal themselves or start to reveal themselves after World War II, and how that changes history within this one cul-de-sac area subdivision in Savannah. And it spans 60 years. 1945 to the year 2000, so 55 years. Side note. Also, Hawkeye, thank you for all of the ad reads you did for that series. I really appreciate it. Entirely tangential, not related to anything except the fact that I was looking on Netflix to find things. And it was absolutely wonderful, and I had fabulous players, and each of the players were playing families that live in this cul-de-sac, and then we jumped, like, there were groupings, and we would jump 3 to 5, a couple years every session, and is one of my most beautiful things that I appreciate the most, and I think is one of the greatest pieces of art I've ever did, and I thank all of my players for playing with me at that. Anyways, back to my tangent. So I was looking at Netflix to kind of like think about like the definitions of melodrama and how like that happened, which is how I noticed that Sweet Magnolias has a new season coming out. Will I watch it? Yes. Is that going to be brain candy? Yes it is. It is a small town Harlequin romance on television. But slight tangent, going back to the reason again, I was looking at Netflix, and I have mixed feelings about the next statement I'm going to say. And that the statement is, the 6888 is now an Oscar nominee. What has it been nominated for? '97. Okay. What has it been nominated for is the important question. And not for any of the leads, not for animated. No. Cinematography? No. Costume? No. What has it been nominated for? You know how when they just say it's been Oscar nominee, that's great. For what? Don't let me down. Reception. Oh, it was nominated for Best Song by Diane Warren. It's nominated in the African American Film Critics Association for the Beacon Award. It's nominated by Black Reel Awards for Kerry Washington for Outstanding Lead Performance. The song is getting more nominations than this movie, which is, you know, not a surprise. Although it's kind of interesting that Rotten Tomatoes has a 50%, an average of 5.4 rating. And Kerry Washington, the general consensus on Rotten Tomatoes is the 688 is an important true story. Kerry Washington, absolutely killer, because she's Kerry Washington. But the presentation is horrible and isn't well written because it's written and directed by Tyler Perry. There you go. There you go. I needed to stop and take a look at that because, again, there is a lot of things. Like, I think it's an important story. I think it was an important thing to talk about. I really hope, really hope that it, does well. But at the same time, Tyler Perry was not the person. And Tyler Perry does nothing but melodrama. That there's Tyler Perry melodrama, and then there's Tyler Perry chewing on scenery, right? Like, he left melodrama behind. And doesn't even know where it's, ended up. And, like, there's a difference between comedy schlock, camp, and melodrama. Now, melodrama might include aspects of camp, and camp might include various aspects of melodramatic storytelling. But, they are not all the same. They are not all the same thing. They are not the same. So, we've been at this for a while. It's getting late. I think we've agreed that melodrama is good, and different cultures approach melodrama in different ways, and that they appreciate melodrama in different ways, right? Like, because I think, stopping and thinking about this, and as we've been talking about it, a lot of both, a lot of things that end up as melodrama in are frequently taken as like popcorn viewing, right? Like just general popcorn viewing. Um, but at the same time, there are other series that are considered higher, quote unquote, art, quote unquote, um, that might be um, include melodramatic elements, but other things overshadow that. Thornbirds are just straight up satire. Um, so, I think Saltburn made. But here's the thing: Saltburn, I think, walks a line where, because it twists into that darkness, that it is, I would say it's part of that Gothic tradition. And I would say that a large part of it, I would agree, would lead towards melodrama. Are we then saying that melodrama, and particularly things like soap operas, Chinese dramas, all of this is the inheritor of the Gothic romance? And particularly things like Southern Gothic. Yeah, like I think Saltburn has a lot of overlap with Flowers in the Attic. I think Flowers in the Attic is better written, personally. Um, I think that's where we are. I think there is a through line you could follow from Gothic romance of the late 18th, early 19th century, from the Gothic horror, and include Gothic horror, but make a distinction between Gothic horror and the Gothic romances like Wuthering Heights or Jane Eyre, right? Like, and then, oh yeah, Cole Drake, we were talking about Dark Shadows earlier. All the love for Barnabas Collins, right? Like, I think that's that. Well, Faulkner's a little later, but like, um, you know, a lot of those early 19th, late 18th, early 19th century. Dear Lord Byron has a few. Um, Gothic contributes to that through line that leads to melodrama, particularly melodrama. If we take the Gothic and we lead it through to melodrama, then we lead into stuff like Italian revenge opera. Like, if we want the height of melodrama, it has to be Italian revenge opera, which is its own quasi genre and has its own genre conventions. And when we follow that a little bit further, then you get, at least in American media, you get the beginnings of the soap opera and lead into melodrama on the television. I think there's where our through line is. And we also pick up the Southern Gothic conventions like Flowers in the Attic. I think that is where we are going to end, because we are going to say that melodrama belongs to Gothic literature. Or melodrama has existed long before Gothic literature, but the way it's presented, so then that leads to the question of like, okay, given the sharp decline in popularity of the daytime soap opera, what is the inheritor of that melodrama? Is it that primetime, like, no, it has to be that primetime level of Shonda Rhimes-ness, right? Like, Shonda Rhimes, Grey's Anatomy, Um, uh, how do you get away with murder? Those kind of dramas that lean into that overly complex plot, I think lead into the melodrama. Yeah, revenge, all of that kind of comes into it. I think revenge has to be an aspect of melodrama now that I think about it. Even internationally, I think we need to ascribe revenge as a plot point has to be part of melodrama. To have something be called a melodrama, it has to include some aspect of revenge. We were talking about Blossom earlier. One of the big plot points in that is how Song Mo is looking for revenge against the people who wrongfully accused his uncle and got his entire family massacred. Right? Like, there's a lot of revenge. Oh, Revenge the TV show. Yes, Revenge the TV show. But I also think that goes back to, again, to that point. Revenge leads into this, right? I think revenge has to be a trope convention of melodrama now. Yes, that is our conclusion. That is our conclusion. In Western media, melodrama as presented in soap operas and then into primetime dramatic melodramas and Shonda Rhimes are all the inheritors of both Southern Gothic and then further back even Gothic romances. And that part of that is a genre convention we need to ascribe to it, which is the genre convention that includes revenge as a plot point. How detailed or aggressive that revenge is varies, but it will be a most important plot point. But that is where we're going to end for tonight. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for hanging out. I'll be back tomorrow. Don't know what we're doing yet, but we're doing something. We're going to hang out. We're going to have fun. If you miss out on any of the previous TTRPG streams, you can check them out on YouTube. Go sign up. They're all in nice, neat little playlists. Everything's there. If you want to support me, there's a merch store, and including for reasons should be apparent, I brought back the Vampires for Nixon merch, which, by the way, Hector, came out of a part of the Carousel Court game, and there's a reason for that. Again, if you also want to just support me in general, hey, I have a Ko-Fi. You can donate there. Again, it goes all back into the production and running the streams and doing all of that. I'll be back tomorrow, again, 8 p.m. Eastern. See what happens, and we're going to, getting ready to launch the next TTRPG I'm going to be running. It will be set in Greyhawk. I have a couple of really nice, fabulous players that are going to be doing some interesting things. Y'all are not ready. Y'all are not ready at all for what is going to unfold. I would like to point that out. Y'all are not ready for this fun. But until then, thank you for hanging out with me. Thanks for having a lot of fun. We're gonna go raid Wolfide. Why can't I never remember how his handle goes? Wolfide is another streamer on the Fisher House Foundation charity team, Groundbreakers, and I get to play D&D with him. He has great people, so we're gonna go raid him. He's playing some Marvel Rivals, and we'll see what happens. Have yourselves a great night, y'all. Bye.